Are you seeing this innocent child? This is Victoria Martens, just 10 years old, a sweet little girl whose life became a living nightmare. For months, she was drugged with methamphetamine and used as a toy. Yes, toy. Forced into sexual acts with multiple men. Her small body bore the scars of a sexually transmitted disease. Imagine an STD in a child. She was brutally beaten, her throat crushed, and stabbed 7 times straight through her heart. And in the end, those closest to her violated her, killed her, dismembered her, and tried to burn her body to ashes. This horrific cruelty will leave you stunned. 2, we uncover this heart-wrenching story. So this is the case of Victoria Martens, August 23, 2016. A day that should have been filled with birthday candles and laughter for 10-year-old Victoria Martens in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Instead, it became a nightmare that shook a community to its core. Victoria, a bright and beloved girl, was found dead in her mother's apartment, brutally assaulted, strangled, dismembered, and set on fire. The horror unfolded in the one place she should have been safe, her home. We'll uncover Victoria's vibrant world, the dark shadows that surrounded her, and the unimaginable betrayal that led to her death. This is the story of a little girl whose light was extinguished too soon. Victoria Elizabeth Martens was a shining presence. Born on August 23, 2006, she was a 5th grader who loved burying her nose in books, singing with friends, and finding joy in the smallest moments. Neighbors described her as a constant at the apartment complex, riding her bike, playing with other kids, and beaming with excitement for special days like her birthday. To her friends, she was a star wise beyond her years, yet full of innocent dreams. But behind Victoria's sparkle lay a darker reality. Her mother, Michelle Martens, 35, was caught in the grip of drug addiction. Her apartment, the only home Victoria knew, was a revolving door of strangers, drug deals, and chaos. Michelle's boyfriend, Fabian Gonzales, 31, brought his own troubles, with a criminal history and a volatile presence. His cousin, Jessica Kelley, 31, recently released from jail, was a frequent visitor, tangled in her own web of drugs and crime. And then there was a shadowy figure, later called John Doe, whose presence that night would turn this tragedy into a lingering mystery. These adults, meant to protect Victoria, instead created a dangerous world around her. Think about it. A 10-year-old dreaming of birthday wishes, caught in a home where drugs and danger ruled. Can you imagine the fear she must have felt, even if she didn't show it? On the night of August 23, 2016, Victoria should have been celebrating her 10th birthday. Maybe she hoped for a cake, a gift, or a hug from her mom. Instead, her world collapsed. Inside Michelle Martens' apartment at 7908 Central Ave, NW, a brutal crime unfolded while the outside world slept. Victoria was assaulted, not once, but repeatedly, with a cruelty that defies comprehension. Her small body was strangled until her breath stopped. But the horror didn't end there. Her body was dismembered, arms, legs, torso treated like a trophy of violence. In a final act of destruction, her remains were set on fire, wrapped in a blanket, in an attempt to erase the crime. Michelle Martens, Fabian Gonzales, and Jessica Kelley were in that apartment that night. So was the unidentified John Doe, whose role remains a chilling question mark. But the deepest betrayal cuts through this story. Victoria's own mother was there as her daughter suffered. How could a mother let this happen? Was she complicit or too lost in her own darkness to act? Pause for a moment. A mother's love is supposed to be sacred. Yet Victoria's mom was in the same home where her little girl endured unimaginable pain. How does a heart process that kind of betrayal? The discovery of Victoria's body the next morning, August 24, 2016, sent shockwaves through Albuquerque. Neighbors who knew her as the cheerful girl on her bike were devastated. Her teachers and friends at school were left in disbelief. A birthday that should have been joyous became a tragedy. The community's grief turned to rage when details emerged. Victoria wasn't safe in her own home, surrounded by adults who failed her. Anger zeroed in on Michelle Martens, a mother who should have been her daughter's protector. What was she doing that night? Why didn't she stop it? Victoria's light was snuffed out in the place she called home. Her story leaves us with haunting questions. How could her mother fail her so completely? What roles did Fabian Gonzales and Jessica Kelley play? And who is the mysterious John Doe who slipped through the cracks? To find answers, we'll need to follow the investigation that uncovered this brutal truth and the twists that shocked everyone. So far, we've seen the bright life Victoria lived and the darkness that stole it. Now we'll dive into the investigation that unraveled this crime, the suspects who faced justice, and the secrets that keep this case unsolved. Around 1 a.m., a neighbor caught the faint smell of smoke and strange noises from Michelle Martens' apartment at 7908 Central Ave, NWW. Something was wrong. They dialed 911, and within minutes, Albuquerque police stormed in. The scene was gut-wrenching. In the bathroom, a blanket was smoldering, wrapped around Victoria's small body, covered in blood, dismembered and scorched by fire. Blood stains splattered the apartment, burned clothes littered the floor, and a heavy silence screamed of violence. Michelle Martens, Fabian Gonzales, and Jessica Kelley stood in the chaos, their faces offering no answers. Police sealed the crime scene and took all three into custody. But one question burned. Imagine that moment. A little girl's body, broken and burned, found in her own home. Her mother, right there. Can you feel the shock, the disbelief tearing through that night? The autopsy, a brutal truth.
The whole thing is beyond anyone's conception that this could happen, especially to a little 10-year-old child.
The autopsy shows the manner of death, homicide.
This is horrible, but it appears that she died from strangulation.
According to the medical examiner's report, sometime before she was killed, the 10-year-old suffered abuse and contracted a sexually transmitted disease.
There was evidence of sex, both in terms of rectal trauma as well as the fact that she had an infection that she'd had for some time and evidence of a HPV infection.
And according to her autopsy, after she was strangled and killed, Victoria was then stabbed and dismembered. The medical examiner wrote some of her vital organs were found in a plastic bag. The report also says her lifeless body was found wrapped in plastic bags and a cloth that had been set on fire.
Most chillingly, a partial DNA sample from an unknown male, later dubbed John Doe, was found on her mid-back, pointing to a new suspect. Her body had been dismembered, arms, legs, torso, and set ablaze in a calculated attempt to erase the crime. The brutality left even seasoned investigators shaken. Pause and let that sink in. A 10-year-old drugged, strangled, and torn apart. And a stranger's DNA, hinting at someone still out there. How does a community process that horror? The investigation, a web of lies. The Albuquerque Police Department launched a relentless investigation. Michelle Martens' initial confession was explosive. She claimed she, Fabian, and Jessica gave Victoria drugs, her, and killed her. But as police dug deeper, her story unraveled. Cell phone records showed Michelle and Fabian weren't in the apartment during the estimated time of death, an hour and 45-minute window, contradicting her claims. The DNA evidence pointed to John Doe, not them, as a key player. Michelle later admitted her confession was false, possibly coerced or fabricated in a drug-fueled haze. The apartment yielded more clues. Bloodstains, burned clothing, and tools possibly used in the dismemberment. Hours of interrogations followed. Michelle's story shifted constantly, raising suspicions she was hiding something. Fabian claimed he was too high to remember anything, while Jessica insisted she was asleep during the crime. None of their accounts added up, and the shadow of John Doe loomed larger with every dead end. Who was this man, and why couldn't police find him? Think about it. 3 adults in the house, all pointing fingers, and a little girl's life snuffed out. Their stories don't hold up, but someone's DNA does. Doesn't that make your blood boil? Michelle Martens, Fabian Gonzales, and Jessica Kelley were arrested and charged with first-degree murder, child abuse resulting in death, kidnapping, tampering with evidence, and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Michelle's presence in the home sparked the most outrage. How could a mother do nothing as her daughter suffered? Fabian and Jessica's vague stories only deepened the suspicion. But the discovery of John Doe's DNA turned the case upside down. Police scoured CCTV footage, interviewed hundreds, and probed the local drug network. But the unidentified man remained a ghost. The community of Albuquerque was reeling. Victoria, the cheerful girl who rode her bike and dreamed big, was gone. Her death wasn't just a crime, it was a betrayal by those closest to her and a system that failed to act on prior warnings. Victoria's murder exposed a raw truth. A little girl was failed by everyone meant to protect her. So far, we've uncovered the horror of her death and the investigation's early twists. Now, we'll explore the legal battle that followed, the fight for justice, and the haunting question that remains. Who is John Doe, and will he ever face the consequences? On September 16, 2016, Michelle Martens, Fabian Gonzales, and Jessica Kelley stood in court for their arraignment, pleading not guilty to charges of first-degree murder, child abuse resulting in death, kidnapping, tampering with evidence, and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. But the case's complexity quickly stunned everyone. Prosecutors, citing conflicting evidence, requested separate trials to ensure fairness. In June 2017, Judge Charles Brown approved, scheduling Michelle's trial first for July 2018, followed by Fabian's in October 2018, and Jessica's in January 2019. The stage was set for a legal maze that would test the pursuit of justice. Imagine this: 3 people, tied to a little girl's death, facing their fate in court. But could the truth be as simple as their arrests suggested? Or was something deeper waiting to surface? Michelle Martens, a mother's betrayal. In June 2018, a bombshell rocked the case. Days before her trial, Michelle Martens took a plea deal, pleading guilty to 1 count of child abuse resulting in death, with murder and charges dropped. Her initial confession, claiming she, Fabian, and Jessica drugged, raped, and killed Victoria, was proven false. Cell phone GPS data showed Michelle and Fabian were not in the apartment during the critical hour and 45-minute window of Victoria's death. A psychological evaluation revealed Michelle's tendency to give pleasing answers, likely driven by her drug addiction and manipulation by others. On November 10, 2022, Judge Cindy Leos sentenced her to 12 years, with 6 years credited for time served, meaning just 6 more years behind bars. Her lawyer, Gary Mitchell, called her a model inmate involved in prison programs.
Kim, this was a big surprise in the courtroom here today. Kelley was supposed to plead guilty to 6 charges, including child abuse resulting in death, but the judge called the deal off when Kelley told the judge her story of what happened that night Victoria Martens was killed after a random man entered her apartment.
But Judge Leos was clear. Michelle's choices, especially her relationship with Fabian, a man with a criminal past, put Victoria in danger. Pause for a moment. A mother who failed her daughter, sentenced to just 12 years. Does that feel like justice for Victoria's pain? Can you fathom the betrayal? Jessica Kelley, a plea in the shadows. Jessica Kelley's case was equally complex. In January 2019, she accepted a plea deal, pleading no contest to reckless child abuse resulting in death and other charges, with murder and charges dropped due to insufficient forensic evidence linking her to the assault. Jessica claimed she was high on methamphetamine that night, caring for Victoria when an unknown man, John Doe, entered the apartment and killed her. She admitted to helping Fabian dismember and burn the body to cover up the crime. On April 29, 2022, Judge Cindy Leos sentenced her to 50 years with 6 years suspended, resulting in 44 years in prison, potentially eligible for parole after half. Jessica agreed to testify against Fabian, but her story about John Doe left doubts. Victoria's grandparents, in an emotional courtroom statement, called Jessica pure evil and demanded she never see freedom. Yet the question lingered. Was Jessica's story about a stranger true, or a desperate bid to lessen her punishment? Fabian Gonzales, the trial that divided. Fabian Gonzales was the only defendant to face a full trial, making his case the most contentious. In 2018, his murder and rape charges were dropped, after GPS data confirmed he wasn't in the apartment during the killing. Still, he faced charges of reckless child abuse resulting in death, 7 counts of tampering with evidence, and conspiracy to tamper with evidence. Prosecutors argued Fabian created a dangerous environment by leaving Victoria with Jessica, a known criminal, and later helped cover up the crime by dismembering and burning her body. His trial began on July 11, 2022, overseen by Judge Cindy Leos, lasting 13 days with 35 witnesses and over 500 exhibits. The defense, led by Stephen Aarons, argued Jessica was solely responsible and Fabian had no direct role. But on August 20, 2022, the jury found him guilty on all 9 counts. On October 27, 2022, he was sentenced to 37.5 years, with parole possible after serving half. His team immediately appealed, citing issues with the DNA evidence and jury instructions. Consider this: a man convicted of enabling a child's death and hiding the evidence, locked away for decades, but when the true killer's identity remains a mystery, is that enough? The enigma of John Doe. The case's biggest twist remains the unidentified male DNA found on Victoria's body, labeled John Doe. Prosecutors filed charges against this unknown suspect for murder, rape, and child abuse, but despite testing 16 men by 2018, no match was found. District Attorney Raul Torres vowed to pursue this mystery figure, but as of 2025, the trail has gone cold. Jessica's claim of an unknown man killing Victoria raised eyebrows. Some saw it as a convenient story, while others, including the defense, suggested the DNA could have transferred from the apartment's floor or bathroom. The unanswered question of John Doe keeps this case open, a shadow over every verdict. Think about it. A child's killer might still be out there, hidden in a DNA sample with no name. Doesn't that chill you to the core? Victoria's murder left Albuquerque heartbroken. On August 29, 2016, a birthday memorial drew hundreds, and a public funeral on October 29, 2016, saw the community mourn together. Then, Governor Susana Martinez called for a federal investigation, describing the case as one of the worst she'd seen. Former Mayor Richard J. Barry tweeted, "We are broken by Victoria Martens' murder. Give your kids an extra hug tonight. Justice for Victoria." In 2017, Victoria's grandparents filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the city of Albuquerque and police, alleging the New Mexico Children, Youth and Families Department, CYFD, ignored 5 prior complaints about the Martens household. The lawsuit was dismissed, but it fueled public anger over systemic failures. The community demanded answers. How could a mother and a system let a child down so completely? A legacy of pain and questions. The Victoria Martens case ended with 3 sentences. Michelle Martens, 12 years. Jessica Kelley, 44 years. Fabian Gonzales, 37.5 years. Yet none were convicted of murder, leaving a void where justice should be. The unresolved John Doe mystery haunts the case, with District Attorney Raul Torres insisting we have to get this right for Victoria. But has justice been served? A little girl's screams, a mother's betrayal, and an unknown killer's shadow. This story doesn't end here. Will John Doe ever be found? Or will Victoria's justice remain forever incomplete? Friends, Victoria's story breaks your heart. A child betrayed by those meant to protect her, lost in a system that failed her. If this moves you, don't let her story fade. Share it, subscribe to our channel, and keep fighting for kids like Victoria. Let's make sure no child suffers like she did. Her light is gone, but we can carry her voice forward.